This is a video from Forgotten History on YouTube talking about debunking the myth of the party switch. This party switch thing is so fucking stupid because they really are trying to claim that what the Democratic Party believed back then and what the Republican Party believed back then have somehow switched, and now the Republican Party is the party that agrees with Jim Crow and with slavery and with all that crap. That's fucking wild. What? The Republicans authored, sponsored, and voted 100% on the civil rights legislation. Okay, you know who fought against that every step of the way? It's the fucking Democrats. You know who were lynching people in the streets? The fucking Democrats. You know who were throwing a bed sheet over their head and riding a horse down the road? The fucking Democrats. Not one Republican did that bullshit. But because the Republicans now have a stronghold on politics in the southern part of the United States, people just assume that the party switched for some reason. Look, the best evidence that I've seen for party switching is that the Republicans are now big in the South, and the Democrats are big in the North. Like that's the best evidence I've seen. Despite the fact that they're not actually big in the North. They're big in the large cities where they can push their socialist agendas that encourage dependency on the federal government. Because in the large cities, that's where you'd want to be dependent on the federal government. Now, it's a smart tactic on their part, but it's also, there's no Democrat states, period. The way that there are Republican states, there are no Democrat states. End of discussion. New York is not a Democrat state. Okay? There are a lot of Republicans there. It's just that all the Democrats are congregated into one fucking area. So, they have like a super majority in that one area, and because there's so many of them, they get more control of the state than the Republicans do. California is mostly Republican. If you look at it by county, it's mostly Republican. It's just the large cities that aren't, right? So, in the way that there is... So, if you look at Oklahoma, for example, every single county, for the most part, in most elections, every single county is Republican. Completely red state. And there are many of those. There are no completely blue states. Period. Not even Hawaii. Hawaii has some red down there. Like, there are none. All right? Just throwing that shit out there. The Democratic Party believes mostly on the socialist dependency of the federal government. I'm just saying. So this is Forgotten History on YouTube again, debunking the myth of the party switch, which is absolutely a fucking full myth. All right, so let's see what really happened. Let me know, guy. What was forgotten in history? Oh, that's so cool. Oh, U.S. Capitol building.
Story of one of the
Fun fact, they electrify that dome to kill birds and squirrels on it so that it always looks good. Just saying. Badass, I know.
most controversial theories in American political history. The party switch. One of the great and often repeated myths in American politics is the great switch of the two primary political parties. One question often arises: how did the party of Abraham Lincoln become the party of the Southern conservative base? How did Democrats go from the party of segregation and lynching to the party of civil rights? Was there in fact a complete ideological switch? Let's clarify this situation.
What the fuck?
Was there really a full...
Obama and Lincoln? Are you kidding me? Also, the fact that there's been a black president should just tell you like that you are not oppressed in American society. This is just flat out.
Ideological switch between Democrats and Republicans.
Oh, look, a bunch of Democrats in
Today
hoods.
we're going to break down the facts and the fiction behind this idea. What is the party switch theory? What is the historical reality? When did this supposedly occur? Was it ever true?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History.
The theory suggests that Democrats and Republicans swapped ideological platforms during the 20th century, especially on issues like civil rights, race, and the role of government. In this version of history, the Republican Party supposedly embraced the policies and the voters of the old Southern Democrats, while Democrats claim to have transformed into champions of civil rights and minority causes.
They claim.
The Democratic Party,
in reality,
as we know it, was shaped by...
They claim. In reality, they just want to remind you how oppressed you are so that you vote for them because they'll give you free shit. Like, that's how it works. They're the party of government subsidies. So for you to accept a government subsidy, you must first believe that you can't do it on your own. In order to believe that you can't do it on your own, they need to tell you how systemically oppressed you are and that it's impossible for you to do it on your own because they won't let you. So you need to put me in charge so that we will let you now, right? It's fucking retarded, man. Like, it's so transparent, too. It's crazy. And these retards keep falling for it. Like, what the fuck? Like, I think the average Somalian IQ is like 68 or something like that, and the average IQ of the American citizen is 90. Okay, both of those are stupidly low. Stupidly low. Okay, the U.S. Army, who will basically take anybody, won't accept you if you have an IQ that's like 80 or less. They've determined that you can't do anything of any use if you're that stupid. You can't even be a meat shield. Like, what the fuck, bro?
By Andrew Jackson, a populist but also a slaveholder. The Republican Party, founded in the 1850s, was the party of Abraham Lincoln and born in opposition to the expansion of slavery, but not the abolishment of slavery. Please see our videos on Jackson and Lincoln. After the Civil War, Republicans pushed Reconstruction policies to protect the rights of freed black people. Meanwhile...
And this is where you got birthright citizenship, the 3/5 compromise, shit like that. And then it wasn't until like 100 years after this, or something like that, like 70 to 100 years or whatever, that we actually pushed forth the civil rights where everybody is a citizen, period, right?
Southern Democrats created and enforced Jim Crow laws, maintaining segregation and opposing civil rights for African Americans well into the 20th century. Even Democrat President Woodrow Wilson was a staunch racist who wanted complete government control and created the Internal Revenue Service with the 16th Amendment.
He created the IRS. I already hate this guy. But no, I mean, Democrats still want complete government control. Like, they haven't changed. So that hasn't switched.
In 1913, and the Federal Reserve to take more money from Americans.
I don't agree with the Federal Reserve either, but that's for a different reason than the IRS.
By the 1930s, under Franklin D. Roosevelt, the Democratic Party began courting working-class voters, including northern black communities, with programs like the New Deal. But FDR did little to nothing to improve race relations in the South. And
I believe it was Lyndon B. Johnson that said he will have these N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years or whatever. And it's directly because of the government subsidy thing that I explained earlier.
And refused to support anti-lynching legislation or desegregation of the military. He confiscated gold supplies from Americans, and he had the opportunity to desegregate the military and allow the immigration of Jews under persecution from Germany and Austria, and he refused. See our videos on FDR. The Democrats also supported labor unions, which the Republicans in general saw...
Boy, FDR sounds like a fucking asshole.
...as a communist attempt to...
Are you sure Carter was worse than him? Because, like, listen, I've heard a lot of stories that, like, Jimmy Carter was the worst fucking president in American history. But I don't know, this FDR guy seems pretty bad.
Control effect.
I mean, created the Fed, like the Federal Reserve. He created the IRS. He refused to desegregate the military and things like that. He refused to support any legislation that was for, like, desegregation. And apparently he also is the one that took all the gold reserves from America and put it in Fort Knox. And at this point, I don't even believe that that's gold that's in there anymore, because, like, I've seen that video and gold doesn't decay like that over time. It doesn't discolor like that. And also it didn't weigh what they said it weighed, so that was weird. Anyway, that's a different conspiracy theory that we can get into. I wonder what they did with all the gold that they took from us. Anyway, and why would they even take it? Like, what would be the reason for that? Like, the money that you have is a note. It is debt. It is a Federal Reserve note, okay? It is $1 worth of debt that you owe the bank, or the bank owes somebody, or whatever. Anyway, FDR seems like a pretty shitty guy. I wonder if I wonder if I can maybe do next week on him. We'll see.
Effective business practices. The Northern Democrats tended to be supportive of civil rights for blacks to gain their support away from the Republican Party, which was business-friendly and pushing for limited government involvement. But this divided the Democrats. Southern Democrats remained fiercely segregationist, while Northern Democrats grew more supportive of civil rights, causing growing tension within the party. The 1950s and 60s pressure mounted. Northern Democrats supported civil rights legislation to secure black votes, while Southern Democrats resisted fiercely, trying to block blacks from voting. Senators like Strom Thurmond and Robert Byrd, the latter a former KKK member, and see our video on him, were both Democrats who led the charge against civil.
Okay, so Northern Democrats support integration, Southern Democrats support segregation, which is why Southern Democrats didn't win, because people wanted integration, and the Republicans, who were championing integration from the beginning, did end up winning a bunch in the South because their opponents wanted slavery. And yeah, no, it makes sense that the Democrats would get a stronghold in the North, and the Republicans would get a stronghold in the South, because the Democrats basically just gave up the fucking South. So, what the fuck? What is the switch?
Civil rights from within the Democratic Party. The other major opponent to civil and voting rights for blacks in the South was Texas Senator Lyndon Baines Johnson, the future president, who, along with Democratic Senator Robert C. Byrd.
Okay. Robert Byrd is another guy that was, he's right up there with Jim Crow, right? But, anyway, Lyndon B. Johnson was the guy that I was just talking about. I wonder if they're going to bring up what he said about the black votes.
Byrd of West Virginia fought tooth and nail to keep blacks from receiving legal recourse under the Constitution. Senator Byrd himself had, in the early 1940s, recruited about 150 of his friends and relatives and other associates to create a new chapter.
Democratic Senator Byrd. In a bedsheet right there.
The Ku Klux Klan in Sophia, West Virginia. He later changed his political position on civil rights as well, but remained a Democrat. Despite his long history of being previously opposed to the various civil rights bills, LBJ signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, largely due to political pressure and the rise of figures like Republican Barry Goldwater, who opposed federal overreach and supported racial equality. This alienated many white Southern Democrats, also known as Dixiecrats, who had historically opposed integration and supported segregation. This was when
I'm hearing an awful lot of former Democrats that just suck. Where are the Republicans that were awful people? I'm just saying, where are they at?
the Republican Party began to appeal to Southern Democrats who wanted limited government in their
Back then, not today. Today, fucking Bush is terrible, but whatever.
lives. Greater states' rights and the social conservative platform of Republicans began to appeal to many Southerners who were drifting away from the racial mindset. Goldwater's posture and perceived...
Just like I said, Southerners didn't want racial segregation anymore, so the Democrats that were still pushing for that in the South didn't win the elections, making the South a pretty wide majority Republican.
hardline stance against communism was in alignment with conservatives, but it was also used against him, a position which LBJ initially claimed publicly to be opposed to, despite his later creating the Gulf of Tonkin incident as a ruse to get legislation passed to send American combat troops to South Vietnam. Due to the creation of welfare and other entitlements by the Johnson administration in order to buy the black vote through generational patronage,
Northern Democrats' voter base, minorities, urban, social liberals, pro-Marxist, pro-immigration. Yeah, that's about where they're still at, honestly, although I think they've moved a little past, they're pro-Marxist, yeah, but they're also just flat-out socialists now. There's a Democratic Socialists of America. That's an organization, for some reason, that we allow to continue. Also, it's illegal for communists to live in the United States, just throwing that shit out there, and we could definitely throw those motherfuckers out. Southern Democrats' voter base were very religious, very conservative, and anti-immigration, which is why they ended up going conservative, and the Democrats just lost them as time progressed. So, interesting. The Northern Democrats are still basically this, or The Northern Democrats, in this video anyway, represent basically what I know to be the Democratic Party as a whole today.
Democrats had a durable base among minorities, urban voters, and socially liberal intellectuals. Also, Southern Democrats were anti-legal immigration into their states, while the Northern Democrats promoted legal immigration. Also, Southern Protestants were typically more religious and church-going, while the Northern, East, and West Coast Democrats began to walk away from organized religion and adopted pro-Marxist platforms, which were deemed by Southern conservatives as anti-American. This all triggered a backlash, and Johnson famous platforms...
I just want to say, look at this. I don't know if you guys are just listening or if you have it on your screen. If you have it on your screen, definitely look at this shit right now. Because this is Karl Marx. This guy over here on the left, that is Karl Marx. And for whatever reason, we take this dude seriously. Like, he looks like an orangutan. Like, what the fuck is this? What is this caterpillar on his lip here? That's not a mustache. There's no... No. No. And this 7 head he has here, what is this receding hairline? He tried his best to make it look, his hair and beard and like mustache look like a mane. But it just doesn't work out that way. I mean, man licks so much boot, his mustache is the only thing that's not white. Alright? Like... Oh, what is this gay necklace he's wearing too? Bro, what the fuck is this?
Which were deemed by Southern conservatives as anti-American.
He's so full of shit his eyes are brown, my guy.
This all triggered a backlash, and Johnson famously said, "We have lost the South for a generation, but we have the black vote for the next 200 years."
That's not what he said, though. That's not what he said.
This was the moment when many Southern white voters, alienated by civil rights policies and federal welfare expansion, began to shift toward the Republican Party, not because the GOP embraced racism, but because it promoted limited government, states' rights, and traditional family values. Another factor aiding in the shift was the Vietnam War, which also divided the country along political lines, and LBJ took the greatest criticism from his own party as a result. Democrats were heavily divided on Vietnam as well. The majority of politically liberal Democrats opposed their own Democrat President Johnson regarding U.S. involvement, while more conservative Democrats and Republicans either took a neutral or pro-American involvement in fighting communism. In 1968...
And I think we could all be pro-America, right? Like, that's a beat we can all dance to, right? Well, not the modern Democratic Party because they hate America, but the rest of them, the rest of us sane people... Look, I say that the next election, it's just Republicans and independents. The Democratic Party just isn't a thing anymore. I want that. Like, give me the independent party. Give me the Green Party. I don't care, right? Flat, no more of the D, all right?
Richard M. Nixon ran on the presidential GOP ticket, and he courted disaffected Southern whites using code words like law and order, states' rights, and opposition to forced busing, while still maintaining the GOP support for black rights, which still divided Democrats. This opened the door for Republicans, notably Richard Nixon and later Ronald Reagan, who used what has become known as the Southern strategy to gain support in the South by appealing to concerns about federal overreach against states' rights and cultural change. Richard Nixon's Southern...
It does sound to me like the Republicans are preaching the same motherfucking thing that they have been preaching for the last 250 years of this nation's history. And the Democrats are the only ones that really changed their tune. Now, at the core, they still believe what they originally believed. They're just going about it a different way now.
Strategy emphasized law and order and opposition.
So there wasn't really a party switch. It was the Democrats cooled it on the racist rhetoric thing. That's what happened.
To federal busing policies, which was a big deal to Democrats, appeals that resonated with voters frustrated by cultural and political upheaval. Nixon had campaigned on getting out of Vietnam, which satisfied many of both parties' voters and also added Southern whites to Republican rolls. Nixon also ended the Democrat-created Tuskegee syphilis experiment program created by Democrats, among other legislation, and see our video on Nixon. Ronald Reagan later unified these groups into a larger conservative coalition, business leaders, evangelicals, and working-class whites under the banner of small government.
Ronald Reagan, baby. Him and Trump. Those are the two best ones. Both of which are Republicans.
And anti-socialist policies. Democrats became the party of urban centers, progressives, minorities, and coastal elites. They eventually abandoned the Ku Klux Klan, which they had created after the Civil War and supported for a century because the hate group had become too toxic. Republicans attracted religious conservatives, rural voters, small business owners, and working class traditionalists.
Now, California is new. California didn't actually become a state until like halfway through the 20th century, I believe. So, California is relatively new,
especially in the South and Midwest, as progressive Democrats, especially in the North, turned away from supporting religion, which conservatives found appalling. Yes, it is true that some Democrat figures switched parties, like Strom Thurmond of South Carolina, but the idea that the GOP adopted the racist legacy of the Democratic South is misleading and patently false. The Ku Klux Klan, for instance, was never embraced by the GOP. In fact, the Reagan administration helped dismantle it legally and financially, effectively destroying it. Over the years, Democrats embraced more progressive positions on gun control, gender identity, immigration, and race. They allied with activist groups like Black Lives Matter.
All of which are stupid, by the way. There are two genders. Black lives do matter, but so do everybody else's, and no one was arguing that they didn't matter. Just throwing that shit out there.
Antifa and others.
Antifa is a terrorist group that all belong in jail.
Whose critics argued furthered social...
Now, they argue that it's not even a thing anymore. Like, don't trust your eyes, okay? Because Antifa's not a thing, despite having organizations, headquarters, uniforms, a handbook, and several other things. But it's not a thing. It's not a thing. It is a terrorist organization, though, as believed by the United States government.
And political division, and supported wanton violence.
Oh yeah, and this is back when a bunch of GOP people beat the shit out of them in a street because they decided to try and fight us for some reason, despite the fact that many Republicans despite the fact that veterans of the United States military in any capacity are overwhelmingly Republican.
Meanwhile, many centrists...
What made these keyboard warriors that don't know which bathroom to use think that it was a good idea to fist fight veterans in the street?
And conservative Democrats, especially in the South, left the party altogether, becoming Republicans or independents. This wasn't a swap, it was an evolution. In essence, the Democrats who have revised their history to remove the stains of slavery, Jim Crow, and violence against blacks have lost control.
They don't want you to be a slave, but they do think that they're better than you because they do think that you're stupid because you don't have a white skin color. That's not what Republicans think, but that is the argument that Democrats make. They can't do it themselves, so the government has to take care of them. Get the fuck out of here, man.
Democrats love to identify Republicans as being the party of racist and anti-middle class workers. They claim that Republicans adopted all the evils of the old Democrats while never acknowledging the fact that the Democrats were the progenitors of the evil they now claim to oppose. So let's set the record straight. The Republican Party did not become the party of racism.
Never once. Since the very beginning, it has been against that.
The Democratic Party didn't suddenly erase its legacy of slavery, segregation, opposition to civil rights, lynching, and violence.
No, it separated, fractured, and many of them either left the party to become Republicans or left the party to become independents. Okay, all right. Republicans still holding strong and standing strong like a tree through this entire fucking thing, by the way.
The great lie that was...
Meanwhile, the Democrats are fracturing and going crazy, much like they are today.
...created and still pushed by Democrats is that the Great Switch included the Republicans adopting a racist and domestic terror policy and...
This is a great lie. The Republicans never adopted a racist or democratic terror or domestic terror policy, and they never embraced groups such as the Ku Klux Klan.
Embracing groups such as the Ku Klux Klan, which never happened. In fact, it was under Reagan that the Klan was finally destroyed.
Republican President Reagan. Republican two consecutive term President Reagan.
However,
the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. which is literally what the Democrats say every single day. Everything that comes out of their mouth is the government should help you.
Right nationalist groups that arose have traditionally been Republican.
Personally, I'm for individual freedoms where people can choose to do whatever the hell they want to with their lives, and if they choose to lead their own life into ruin because they didn't want to do the correct things, so be it. That's their fucking choice. If you want to choose to be a slave, that is on you, big guy.
Republican in their voting habits since the late 1970s, while ultra-left domestic terror groups remained entrenched within the Democrat Party, replacing the far-right Democrats created and supported KKK. In fact, the modern Democrats today still support active violence. But did the parties really switch?
No.
Well, not exactly. There was no official swap of platforms or...
There was no swap of anything in any capacity other than the Democrats dropping the racist shit and adopting beliefs that the Republicans have had since the beginning.
Party names. Instead, there was a gradual realignment of coalitions. The Republican base grew in the South and included all these previous groups.
The Republican base grew in the South because the Democrats that were represented in the South were for slavery, and the people were not for slavery.
Because they were socially conservative working-class Americans, and recently many Democrats who abandoned their party and registered as Republicans or independents actually voted for Donald Trump. The Reagan Revolution in the 1980s brought together business interests and everyone else who felt disenfranchised by Democrat politics, and they united under the GOP brand using an anti-liberal, anti-socialist states' rights message.
Literally, what happened back then is the same thing that is happening now, right? Where 50 years of crazy Democrat policies that segregate the society as much as they possibly can are wiped out by 2 terms of a Republican president. Right now, it is Trump. They are fighting their damnedest to not let him become a Reagan 2, and it is not working at all. Because Trump is not only taking care of what's happening here, but he's also stopping all the conflicts overseas. And honestly, peace is another beat that we can all dance to. Unless it's American imperialistic manifest destiny type Monroe Doctrine scenarios where the U.S. takes over the planet. And then conquering other nations is a beat we can all dance to. I mean, am I right? I mean, come on.
And limited government platform. The shift was a gradual realignment of voters' ideologies and regional priorities, not a clean switch. The Democrat platform wanted to abolish the Second Amendment. That was a large part of the political shift in politics. Over time, Democrats became more aligned with the urban minority and progressive voter in major cities.
Yeah, no, they literally hate the United States, and they're trying their best to win elections in the United States. And it's fucking working in a lot of these large cities! Oh my god!
On the east and west coast, and in large northern and even some southern cities.
Look, this sign says media silences violence. You don't hate the media enough. They are all fucking liars. All of them.
While the Republicans have attracted and contained and retained rural religious...
I'm not the media, though. I'm an asshole on the internet, and you can trust my opinion.
...and conservative voters, particularly in the South and Midwest. More recent Democrat-supported criminal entities, such as Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and see our video on BLM, and even their left-wing socialist predecessors.
I've made a video on Antifa also. You should check out mine at youtube.com/Sestill_T2T. Check out my videos, baby. Yes!
Like the Weather Underground terrorists, and also see our video on them, remained loyal to and were supported by the Democrats, and still are to this day. These actions drove conservative Democrats even further away from the party, and further divided Democrats and forced others to change affiliation.
These are stores that were ransacked and looted because they decided to decriminalize theft up to a certain dollar amount. But also, they would just, during these riots, they would ransack these fucking stores. Did not matter who owned it, did not matter what the store was, it didn't even matter what they sold, because people were running out with, arms full of shoe boxes. And the Democrats were arguing, these people just need it!
The argument had been that the parties...
These mostly peaceful protests. The CNN had an actual Baghdad Bob, fucking for real. Literally standing in front of carnage and destruction and going, nah, it's fine!
Literally swapped the names and positions. But the parties evolved gradually, and their ideological coalition shifted, and Democrat methods remained pretty much the same. Today's political map reflects decades of migration, economic change, and cultural realignment, not a simple party flip. African American voters, who largely supported the GOP after the Civil War, began overwhelmingly voting Democrat after the 1960s due to the laws passed by LBJ and the black support.
Yeah, vote Democrat and you get free shit. That's where this started.
Regarding both parties still favor the Democrat.
It's also where the black nuclear family started going down, right? It's also where the black-owned businesses started going down because they're not incentivized to actually do anything other than depend on the government.
But in far less numbers.
They kicked out the father. They kicked out the ability to earn for yourself. They kicked out your own self-confidence. And so you're completely subservient to the government, and the only way to continue to get all of your benefits and really the way that you fund your life, the only way to continue to get that is to continue to vote Democrat, regardless of how crazy they are, because the Republicans don't want to give you free shit. They want you to work for your own shit and be able to get whatever it is that you are able to get for yourself. Your life should be built off of the strength of your own back. All right? That's flat out, that's for real.
Today. It's not about who changed names. It's about who showed up and what they stood for. People generally vote with their pocketbooks, and Democrat policies have always increased taxes, reduced employment opportunities, increased interest and mortgage rates, increased nonsensical spending at home and abroad, as well as increased the general cost of living. But perhaps the greatest driving force sending former Democrats to the middle or right were the Biden administration's policies on taxpayers funding millions of illegal immigrants, importing and increasing violent crime, and the liberal Democrat supporting and George Soros-funded mainstream media being caught in thousands of lies, supporting Democratic criminal activities, and creating conspiracies against conservatives. And see our video on George Soros. So, to set the record straight, the two parties didn't switch names or trade platforms.
I haven't covered George Soros, but a couple of the super rich people that are like huge Democrat donors are like the Rockefellers, George Soros, stuff like that, the Rothschilds. But those people also own an awful lot of like the railroad systems and things that are in the United States, which is why they didn't want the pipelines during Trump's first term to go through, like the Keystone XL pipeline, stuff like that. They didn't want that to actually get built and go through because a lot of the crude oil that we get is transported, or liquefied natural gas even, is transported via railway. And so those ultra rich, wealthy people would lose an awful lot of money if we started transporting things via pipeline, because it's a more environmentally friendly way that would exclude the trains altogether, right? So.
What changed were their coalitions, the kinds of voters they attracted, and the cultural issues they championed. So yes, there was a switch of sorts, but it was simply a matter of those citizens with a socially and fiscally conservative mindset drifting more to the political right to whom they were aligned, and today's socialist liberal tax and spend collective remaining on the left. It is as...
And this is how the Democrat became a socialist communist party, right? Where Zoran Mamdanis can win, the AOCs, the Ilhan Omars, the Rashida Tlaibs, the Jasmine Crockett's, etc., right?
Simple as that.
I could name so many more.
Thank you for watching this episode of...
You are welcome, guy from Forgotten History. You need to eat a sandwich, sir. Slavery is... absolutely terrible, horrible human thing that we used to do to each other. But it's still going on today, and the people that claim to hate it are fighting it in all the wrong places. And the people that are taking numbers are just trying to make the United States look bad by counting fucking incarcerated people as slaves, which is wild to me. But anyway, yeah, definitely like this video. Definitely follow me on Kick. Definitely put in the chat, put in comment sections, let me know. If you were a gladiator in the Roman Colosseum, what would your fighting style be? And you can only use the weapons that were available in the time. You can't I'm going to show up with a gun and kill everybody. No. That's not how it works. You have to do it. Anyway, follow me on Kick. Follow me on X at @real_Sestill. Follow me on or subscribe to me on YouTube. at youtube.com/Sestill_G2D because I am the second coming. You can also look for me on Rumble if you're tired of YouTube. At rumble.com/Sestill. I am everywhere that videos are made, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. All right, I'll see you next week. Bye.